So no language in this world is perfectly logical. Over time, languages have evolved in the direction of pursuing accuracy and efficiency at the same time. If you can convey the same meaning through a little bit of contraction and abbreviation, that shorter version will start being used more frequently. So take, for example, instead of saying you are, you often say or write your, and instead of saying liquid crystal display, you say LCD. On the other hand though, if you omit something and the meaning that you wanted to express becomes less clear, you can't do it that often. So in English, you still have to say I understand, you understand, we understand. Whereas in Spanish, because the verbs actually change form, you can simply omit the words for I, you, and we, and just say entiendo, entiendes, and entendemos. Omitting is okay here because the meaning is still clear. And we're doing this more often than we realize, perhaps. When you say, do you want to watch this movie that just came out? I heard it's really good. Your friend probably doesn't say, oh, us watching that new movie that just came out sounds like a good idea to me. But rather just probably says, sounds good. And to that, you also don't ask, what sounds good? You just omitted a very important subject in your sentence. You have to put it back. So whether we are aware of this fact or not, we're sort of playing this guessing game almost every time we use a language. And that guessing game is more commonly described as looking at the context. So we are already doing this and it's nothing new. But you start learning Korean as a foreign language and the difficulty of this game, this guessing game, suddenly goes up a few notches. Why is the guessing game more difficult for Korean learners? Well, that is because of two reasons mainly. One, subjects and objects are often omitted in sentences. Again, you do that in English too, but you do that even more often in Korean. When you show to your friend an umbrella that you brought, you might say 비 온다고 해서 가져왔어, presenting an umbrella. Literally analyzed, it'll mean it will rain, said, so I brought, or even so brought. Who said it will rain? You brought what? In English, you must say I and it, but in Korean, you just say 가져왔어, brought. You're not even saying I brought it. And the second reason that the guessing game is more difficult and therefore more important, especially for learners in the Korean language, is the particles. The particles are often the worst nightmare for many beginner learners and even advanced learners, but these particles allow Korean sentences to be much more flexible and efficient. And particles are great because they show the role of a certain word, the role that a certain word has in the sentence. Is it the subject? Is it the object? Is it a location? Is it a method, etc.? Let's think about these two sentences as examples. These are English sentences. Hyunwoo is drinking coffee. And then we have coffee is drinking Hyunwoo. Just by placing the words in the wrong order or changing the word order of the sentence, the entire meaning of the sentence becomes different, or in this case, impossible. But this is not always the case in Korean. You can say 현우 씨가 커피를 마시고 있어요. Or 커피를 현우 씨가 마시고 있어요. Or even 커피를 마시고 있어요, 현우 씨가. Of course, there are subtle meaning and tone differences between these sentences, but all of these sentences actually make sense and are usable. And then you go one step further and sometimes omit those particles too. For example, 커피 마시고 있어요, 현우 씨. 현우 is drinking coffee. And if you use the same exact sentence but change the tone a little, it becomes 커피 마시고 있어요, 현우 씨. 현우, have some coffee and wait. So there's suddenly a lot more flexibility. So because many words are often omitted in Korean sentences and the word order is switched around more flexibly in Korean, it can be sometimes challenging for Korean learners to understand even relatively short and everyday sentences. But once you understand that there is always going to be a lot more intense guessing game involved in speaking and understanding Korean, it will become more fun. For example, one common advertisement phrase that you can easily see is 인터넷보다 싸다. You might see this on storefronts. What words are being used here? internet is the internet, and 보다 is than compared to, and 싸다 is to be cheap. So together, something is cheaper than the internet. But then you wonder, what's cheaper than the internet? What is even the price of the internet? Are we really talking about the price? Are we really even comparing something's cost to the internet? Not really. But of course, when you look at the context or play the guessing game pretty well and find the missing elements, you can come to the conclusion that the location marking particle 에서 is omitted there. So to make technical sense, it has to be 인터넷에서보다 싸다. Something is cheaper than on the internet. But in Korean, almost nobody says that. Even when they want to say the opposite, that something is cheaper on the internet, they will simply say 인터넷이 더 싸요, which will literally mean that the internet is cheaper. When they want to say, technically speaking, 인터넷에서 더 싸요, right? So with all that said, what do you need to do as a learner? What you need to do when you encounter sentences like these is to sort of put on a detective hat and try to find what words were omitted from the theoretically perfect sentence. How about one more example? I hear this a lot. 저도 좋은 것 같아요. I say this a lot too. 저도 좋은 것 같아요. 저 is I, 도 is also. 좋은 것 같아요 means seem good or seems good. Does it mean I seem good too? Does it mean I think I am good as well? Or does it mean it looks like I am good? No. In most everyday situations, it means I think that sounds good too. So put on your imaginary detective hat and ask yourself, what are the missing elements here? I think here the word for thought, 생각, and the particle 에 are missing. So 제 생각에도 좋은 것 같아요. And you're just omitting 생각, omitting 에, and you're saying 저도. In my case too, from what I see. So 제 생각에도 whatever sounds good is also missing. 그 방법 좋은 것 같아요. 그 계획 좋은 것 같아요. 방법 meaning method, 계획 meaning plan. So in my opinion too, I think that plan sounds good. I think that method sounds good. So those would be the more grammatically perfect sentences, but instead you just hear 저도 좋은 것 같아요. At first especially, and probably for quite a while, whether you are listening to someone talking or reading a Korean book, not every Korean sentence will make clear logical sense at first if they have lots of elements omitted and contracted, or if the words are not in the order that you would expect them to be from your translation. So as you learn more and more Korean, just keep that fact in mind and don't worry too much because it's a natural process. Sometimes you will need to become a grammar detective and look for that missing element, but gradually as you get more and more input and speak and write more Korean, the guessing game also will become easier. Just remember that there will always be a lot more flexibility in Korean sentences than you would expect because of the very useful and powerful particles, and there will be a lot of subjects and objects being omitted than in your average English sentence, okay? And other than that, you just keep going, keep learning. And thank you everyone for learning Korean with us. Thanks always for watching. To continue learning Korean, the best place you can go to, of course, as you know, is our website, talktomekorean.com. We have a ton of resources and books for you. Take a look around. And we also recently released a new course on Korean particles. It's called Korean Particles Party, so you might want to check that out as well. You must check that out. So I'll put the link down below in the description as well as in the pinned comment. Thank you and continue learning. 감사합니다. Bye bye.